This is Get Great Guest Reviews, the podcast. To access free resources, including the show notes for this episode and more, please visit adelegutman.com/Get Great Guest Reviews. Hi, I'm Adele Gutman, and welcome to Get Great Guest Reviews. I am really excited for our conversation today. We're always talking about how to inspire 5-star reviews and how to leverage those reviews to enhance your revenue, optimize your guest satisfaction and your employee satisfaction at the hotels, and the impact that those wonderful reviews, references, referrals, and recommendations have on our revenue. Before I go into it, I just want to point out a book that I found recently, which is called The ROI of Kindness. We're having a lot of lack of kindness in the world today with the very, very tough times, and I can't recommend this book enough. It is written by Brian Biro and Mac Anderson, and I think that it's a very thin book, but it is so impactful. And I think reading this will give you so many ideas that you can share with your team to get everybody focused on using kindness and compassion to create a great culture in your workforce and to make our guests happy so that they come back more often, want to spend more money because they really appreciate the experience they have with you, and of course that they share their experience with enthusiasm with their friends and with the world on TripAdvisor, Google, Expedia, Booking.com, and all of those other wonderful places where you can let the world know when you found a really wonderful business to work with and to stay at. So once again, that's The ROI of Kindness with Brian Biro and Mac Anderson. So go get that. I also want to say that I have a sponsor. It's Guest Chat. And if you go to guestchat.com/Adele, you can get a free 90-day trial with no obligation and no contract of any kind. Just see how you like working with a chat box on your website. Why not give it a try? I think that it will take a lot of burden off of your staff, and it will give a quick, great experience to the guests that you have that are looking for answers quickly. So give it a try and then let me know how it works for you and how that impacts your guest satisfaction and your revenue. So today we have someone I care about so much, and I really respect her so much. It's Stephanie Smith, who is the matriarch of Cogwheel Marketing. Welcome, Stephanie. It is always a joy to talk to you.
Adele, you too. I'm so excited to talk about this passion that you have and how we leverage it. So thanks for having me.
It is absolutely my pleasure. It's always great to speak with someone who I esteem so much like yourself, who really gets it about the impact of guest reviews, and just the whole online presence of a hotel is so important in optimizing revenue. I mean, what have you found with your market and the contacts and the clients that you have? How is the guest experience and those reviews? How are they impacting your revenue?
Well, that's a loaded question, but from our perspective, we actually do a lot of these 30-point audits where we look at their total online presence and identify gaps. So I think a lot of people understand that, at least at a base knowledge, that reviews are important. They probably affect your conversion rate. So if you're comparing two hotels, maybe reviews will make that difference. But I think it's so much bigger than that. It's so much more nuanced in terms of how people shop and their entire customer journey, right? Their entire path to booking. So as many different touch points as they have, like think about all the places people can leave reviews. So how can, they can leave them on Google, on TripAdvisor, on the OTA. So there's so many different touch points, and the reviews are in people's face, right? So before you can start mapping out, when people come to us and they might have an underperforming asset, there's probably a lot of different tools in our toolbox, but we really look at reviews as one of those foundational places to say, before we do XYZ? Like what's that review impact that we have, and making sure that those different touch points throughout that booking path to that journey to booking, and what is that? How do reviews impact that when you look at it against all the different places somebody can find out about your hotel?
Yeah, when I was working as the VP of Sales, Marketing, and Revenue for the Library Hotel Collection, I mean, we were just these little boutique hotels that nobody has ever heard of, and independent, and we didn't pay for advertising, not at all. So how would anybody find us in the world? And then suddenly, I mean, in addition to the word of mouth, which is basically the hotels relied on, in addition to the word of mouth, and also, I should say, the relationships in the neighborhood, of course, the clients that we had, people were then waking up in other countries, in other parts of the United States, who had not known anybody who had ever stayed in our hotels. But because they could go to TripAdvisor or an online site, I'm not sure that they had Google reviews back then. I remember having Yahoo reviews, though. And they were finding us, and not only finding us, but saying, wow, I may never have heard of this place. I may not have ever seen an ad for this place, but look at all of these beautiful reviews. It was such a game changer for us. And I know it really can be super impactful. So I think you once said to me that you are sure that everybody knows the impact and the importance of guest reviews. I'm really not sure. I think, and I wonder if you agree, I don't think that people realize how much it impacts visibility. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
First of all, if you didn't have any advertising dollars, like that's amazing. I think a lot of people have a small budget and they're trying to decide how to cut that pie in as many different things as they possibly can, right? And I think the whole, like, how big is your budget is a whole nother conversation. But, we've worked with some hotels where, like, hey, we have an underperforming and they want to throw money at it. They want to throw money. I said, well, there's no point, based on what your reviews are, this particular hotel, out of their last 20 TripAdvisor reviews, 17 of them were 1, 2, or 3s. So I was like, I can't in good faith ever put money again to paid media or to any advertising, because they won't convert. It's just, I might be able to get the exposure. I might be able to get them in a consideration set, but I will never be able to show, they're never going to make a final booking with this hotel. It's just the fact that it was an actual deterrent, like it was almost impossible to get any conversion. So I've got owners yelling at me that, hey, our return on ad spend is poor. And I'm like, this isn't. So I think understanding that dynamic. And the other piece of that is, if you want more exposure and you want to steal market share on the other side, you need to be leveraging reviews to get you in front of new people. Get to your point, like you did with the library collection, it's about leveraging reviews to get in front of audiences that you want to stay at your hotel. Not only understanding the negative impact, but also that positive impact on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. I've checked with booking.com. I've read several things on Expedia, and certainly on TripAdvisor. All of those have in their algorithm of how things are presented is a very high priority what kind of reviews that hotel or business has, and Google as well, because they want people to have a good experience so that they'll keep using their search. And so it is absolutely phenomenal. There was one time that my tiny little 45-room Casablanca hotel had 185,000 views on their profile in 1 month. I mean, I don't know that anybody's getting numbers like that anymore, but I'll never forget it. And I was thinking, well, I guess that's why we can charge what we do, because there are so many viewers and so many people competing for that very small, that it makes a big difference in that equation of supply and demand. Without a doubt, I know that if I'm looking at a beautiful ad in a magazine or online somewhere, or I hear about a fantastic special offer in an email blast, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check on the reviews. And if the reviews say that that company, that cruise line, that attraction, that restaurant isn't delivering on their brand promise, that what they claim on their ads is going to be the best burger in town or whatever it is. I'm a vegetarian. I don't know why burger, but whatever it is, the best pizza in town, and the reviews say, well, it isn't. I've wasted my advertising dollar.
A lot of times we talk about transient, but I think people need to realize that for a group meeting planner, like that's also something, I think it's the number two thing. Reviews is the number two thing that meeting planners look at, because while you might be able to offer a great group rate or something or a great location, they also want to make sure their guests are going to have a good time. So while it does impact our transient components, like meeting planners are using reviews just as much, if not more, than the average transient guest too. So.
And reputation isn't even just about reviews. I mean, meeting planners talk to each other a lot, I think. Not only that, but they come back again and again to the place where they had a great experience. And what you do to one meeting planner will be public knowledge with the other meeting planners. So there's really a responsibility that the operations has in marketing. This is not just marketing. Operations and marketing, I remember operations and marketing aren't two sides of the same coin. They're really the same thing, because we market every time we give somebody something to smile about or something to regret.
That's true. That's very true.
So you're saying it's something that people do. It's very common to underestimate the value of the 5-star reviews, and changes whether they're even considered in the comparison set, right? So if you're looking at a bunch of hotels, you may not even be under consideration if you're not at a certain level.
You're not even getting into you can't make it to bottom funnel if you're not somewhere in the top or middle funnel, right? I mean, I think everybody has used Google enough to know if you're looking for hotels in New York or whatever, there's only Google in that map pack. Google's only showing a few hotels, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the Google algorithm. We won't go into those today, everything from personalization to different types of SEO. But when I'm talking to hoteliers and I'm trying to say foundationally, there are some things that, your proximity to a demand generator, somebody might be searching for, and that might impact Google. You're not going to be able to affect their historic searches, and things like that. But what we can affect as hoteliers is those Google reviews. These days, we're pushing more and more people to add, because that in turn affects how much more often you're showing up in that Google ecosphere. So I'd read a statistic that up to, when you think about that ranking algorithm for Google, especially in that Maps ecosphere, you're talking about up to a 16 or 17% ranking factor is tied to reviews. A lot of these things, again, we work with mostly branded hotels. So a lot of these things are outside of control, but that is in a hotelier's control. You're talking about almost 20% ranking factor in terms of how often you show up in that search on Google. And this is something you don't pay for. That's not coming out of your, expense line items. Like, this is asking for a Google review is just as simple as having a Gmail account. So why aren't we asking for those as much as anything else?
Yeah. And sometimes people really want to use your product, but you have so few reviews, or you have so few 5-star reviews, that they go, you know what, maybe I'll just do something else instead. Sometimes they just want confirmation that what they thought would be a good choice will really be okay for them. Somebody just recommended a doctor, and with tons of 5-star reviews for my parents. And they said that doctor is busy until March, but there's another doctor. And I looked that person up, 10 years in business, and not one review can I find anywhere. And I mean, if that is a good doctor that still works in the same practice, how is it that they're just failed to ask for reviews? I'm sure.
I mean, I can see if you're a brand new practice. I mean, we do a lot of openings. So that first, to your point, but it's hard when you're opening a hotel, asking for reviews usually isn't top on the operations list in terms of the priorities, paint that's needed over here. But that ramp up, when you talk about the time it takes for online ramp up specifically and to gain traction online, I mean, you're talking about a difference. So does it take you 90 days to ramp up? Should take you 9 months to ramp up. And reviews is a huge part of that.
Yeah. And you can even have a great sales manager who got you on the list for a corporate account, but the people who are actually making the travel can choose among a certain set.
Yeah.
So don't you find that makes a difference?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we tend to have tunnel vision, and we get a little bit siloed in terms of I always laugh at they're like, well, do reviews fall under marketing or fall under ops, like you talked about earlier? And I feel like from ops, I'm trying to use it to optimize to get in front of the next guest. And that also helps your sales team. It also helps everybody, right?
Absolutely. If you're making sales calls, you're fighting for a new piece of business to replace the business that you just lost because that company is not coming back again. You're not growing. You're just treading water and trying to keep your head above water instead of keep the business that you have, keep the customer, and have your salespeople out growing the business instead of replacing people who were thinking that it was good, but I'm looking for love. I'm looking for a 5-star experience, not necessarily a 5-star hotel, but a full, enthusiastic, everybody was great. Everybody did the right thing for us. All my people who attended the meeting were happy with the food, with the temperature, with the cleanliness, with the accommodations, with maintenance. Everything went really smoothly. I'm ready to book that again. Sometimes everything was okay, but it wasn't love, and they're still got their eye open for something else. So yeah, it's sales, it's marketing, it's revenue, it's all of those things. So I heard that you have a good analogy for why the commercial department needs to be a leader in managing the guest experience and those reviews.
Yeah, I think because you have to talk, give people scenarios and examples they understand. And a lot of times what happens is people don't care about the reviews until they're bad. It's not one of the things that leads their strategy. So I tell people, the analogy I use, I'm like, hey, when you think about going and buying a car and you're thinking, you want a new car and you're doing all this research, and then you go to the car lot and you're ready to make a purchase. The car dealer is not waiting to make the car by the time you get on the car lot, right? They have to have already, unless you're buying a Tesla, but if you're, most of the time, it's got to be clean, it's got to be washed, it's got to be shiny, it's got to have, all the information that you need so that when you are ready to purchase, that you have the best front that you possibly can. So same thing with cars and same thing with hotels. If you wait until your reviews are bad when somebody's ready to buy, whether on the group or transient side, you've already missed the bus. Your opportunity for closing that deal has gone, and you don't know when they're going to be ready to buy it again. You may travel. You don't know if they're ever coming back to your market again, right? You don't really have the details sometimes with that. The other analogy I use is about when you go to the grocery store. So, there's a lot of effort that goes into placement and packaging at the grocery store. So whether is it line of sight? Are you at the bottom of the shelf? Are you competing on price? So there's all these different scenarios. But if you want to be ready and available when that guest is ready to book your hotel, you've got to have great packaging and have prime placement. So in the online space, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. And when you open the box and have your first taste, is that going to be the last time they buy you? Or it's just a first time of a long-term relationship?
Yeah. How are you calculating the lifetime value of that guest and then the acquisition that went into getting that guest for the first time? That's a whole nother podcast too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add about maybe what's coming up next for marketing and reviews?
Yeah, I've got my predictions. I think one of the outside of the generative AI component, and I'm curious to see how many people are going to start using some type of generative to help with review responses, because I think there's, some low hanging fruit. As long as we're still using that personal connection and personal touch, and maybe that'll change the algorithm if too many people start using AI for it. But I think one of the things we've noticed, at least on the agency on whole, is a lot of people are finally deciding that their food and beverage outlets can really drive the experience. And then obviously there's a reviews component to that. So I feel like for the first 15 years of my hotel career, the restaurant was there driving revenue. It was just a box to check. So I think one of the other trends that we're seeing, especially, is on the food and beverage side. So for the first 15 years of my career, the outlets, the restaurants were just kind of a box to check. We have to feed people. We don't really care about the experience. But now people are leaning in towards realizing that that's part of the whole hotel experience. It's another touch point that they can have. So it goes along into promote your restaurant to locals and get traction there. I think a lot of people are going to realize that they have to have separate reviews management of their outlets versus just the hotel. So having a separate GMB account for your restaurant, having separate ad budgets for your restaurants, and all that's going to kind of go into play. But the reviews for restaurants, I think, is going to become more important as we go into 2024. My third prediction is around how we start, really understanding the true monetization of reviews. So we've been working on benchmarking software that aggregates all of your digital marketing data and then starts really trying to identify those gaps. So I think as we continue to collect data, I think we're going to see that reviews is a direct indicator against a lot of other performance KPIs in the digital space. So when you start mapping the entire online journey and start saying, how does my hotel compare against others? It's a lot easier to show an owner, like, here's the gap that you have against like hotels. Just how do you index against those is going to be extremely clear to owners and how it affects your bottom line.
I know that everybody is always asking how to monetize, how to figure out the exact equation of what is the dollar value of a 5-star review or something like that. But I'll tell you this, there's no 5-star restaurant in the world that's saying, it doesn't matter if it's so good, they'll still come to us anyway. No, they know that wow moment from the moment you walk in the door, actually, even before that, when you see the website, when you look at the menu, when you make your reservation, the whole guest experience, and that moment of arrival and how you're greeted, how comfortable your table and seating is, the sound in the room, the smell of the room, the decor of the room. So many wow moments are possible in a dining experience, and it leads to that magic. And of course, it's the people that really make the magic happen. So the culture, how we nurture the culture of putting the guest first and making sure every guest feels so welcome, so cared for, so appreciated, so respected. That is money. I mean, you don't need to know what the equation is. Just do it. And you're going to see whatever it is, it's going to benefit you because you're going to get less complaints. You're going to get more repeat business. You're going to get more referrals, more reviews, more recommendations. They're going to book their parties and their special occasions, bring all their friends with them. And it's all good. The public relations, the Instagrams, everything else that comes with it. Just how social media friendly food is. It's such an opportunity to expand your reach. It is just crazy to say, I don't care about the reviews. What's one person's opinion about the food in my restaurant? Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's taste is different. It doesn't mean my food is bad. It just means that person didn't like it. But that's what's driving your business. That's what's going to make you a phenomenal success. And
I really hope restaurants can step it up in the hotel space because I think they've had a bad rap for a really long time. I think there's some brands doing great with, rooftop experiences and things like that. But a lot of restaurants, the team that runs it is still totally siloed against the rest of the hotel team. So when you talk about the synergies, are the departmental synergies still there?
Yeah. I remember one vacation I had where in that country, every single meal was a phenomenal experience. Every single one was just unbeatable. We just treasured everything. And the only average experience was at the most beautiful rooftop with the most spectacular view of the most precious scene in that country. And they just rested on their laurels.
You're right. You do see that quite a bit. They think their value proposition is the view and not the people or the food, which is, you kind of have to hit it all from all sides, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing I like to ask everybody is there any book that you've read lately that you recommend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a lot of different books. I tend to read entrepreneurial books, but if anybody is leading a team of any kind, whether it's a digital marketing agency or a hotel or a restaurant or whatever. So I've been reading a new book called On Fire at Work. It's by Eric Chester. It's about how great companies ignite passion without burning them out. So finding that balance of managing a team. So I think it's good for anybody that's in team management that you want their passion to come through, but you don't want them to be leaving after a year because they're too tired, they're working too many hours. So finding balances in terms of compensation, in terms of reviews, there's all these, internal team dynamics that go into that I think, have a direct effect on how your team interacts with clients or how your team interacts with guests. I think anybody can learn from the book.
That sounds fantastic. I'm definitely going to get it, especially if it's on Audible. um, so, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn, like Adele is. So you can find Stephanie Spark Smith on LinkedIn. And then our two company websites, Cargo Marketing is our digital marketing agency arm supporting branded hotels. So cargomarketing.com. And then Cargo Analytics is our software BI tool that provides kind of like a star report for digital marketing for hotels, where you can start benchmarking your data against other like hotels. So you can really look at your total online presence and see where your gaps are. You can find us there at cargoanalytics.com.
That sounds great. You'll be very smart to work with such a woman as Stephanie Smith and your wonderful team, which I see is growing. So that's exciting to watch as well.
Thanks,
Well,
Adele.
thank you so much. And have a great week. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to Get Great Reviews, the podcast. I believe so strongly that we in hospitality have the power to make the world a kinder and happier place. We all can have an important impact on the lives of our guests and our team members. I hope this podcast will leave you feeling emboldened and empowered to help your whole organization embrace change so that everyone can feel they are part of something special and very positive. Let's always look for signs of distress around us and then use that to collaborate and turn them into opportunities for innovation, to reduce suffering, replacing those negative feelings with positive human connection and beautiful, memorable experiences. Thanks to the power of social media and guest reviews, making guests happy is the most powerful form of marketing and the most joyful. If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to share, drop a comment, like, and of course, subscribe on adelegutman.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you once again for listening. Let's go out there today and sparkle a little sunshine in the world. And always remember to reach for the stars.